All right, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. And you know what? Today's a very special day here on the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. It's the moment we've all been waiting for, folks. I'm so excited to announce this self-compassion course that I'm going to be doing in just 7 days, or I guess 7 days from today, 7 days from tomorrow, next Saturday the 16th is when we're going to start. It's going to be every Saturday, and I've purposely made it on a Saturday and purposely in the middle of the day so that we can accommodate some of our friends who live across the pond, as we say, not just in England, just across the pond, but in all of Europe. I have one very dear client who lives in Turkey, in Ankara, and she is planning to attend our self-compassion workshop or self-compassion course, I guess we will say, right? Now, let me tell you a few things about this course, okay? Before we talk about, well, actually, first, let's talk about self-compassion in general first, right? And also mindfulness. Now, of course, for all of you watching the podcast and listening to watching the YouTube videos and listening to the podcast, you know a lot about the self-compassion and the mindfulness that I've already been telling you so much about for all of these months and months and months, almost 600 episodes, right? Actually, we're very close to the 600th episode. It's like days away. I think this is 596, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, self-compassion, right? Well, for one thing, as I've mentioned here before, self-compassion requires mindfulness. And in a sense, mindfulness also requires a little bit of self-compassion, not so much that direction, but certainly the other way. Self-compassion absolutely requires mindfulness and any compassion at all, right? Whether you want to feel compassion for those people in your friends and family network, if you want to show compassion to people who are, less fortunate, just other citizens out in the world, if you want to show more compassion for anyone or anything, including yourself, the first thing, and believe me, you do want to show more compassion for yourself. You really do. Okay. It's just so healthy on so many different levels. All right. There's no justifiable reason not to be kind and compassionate. Okay. There, I said it. Okay. And the reality is, though, again, getting back to why mindfulness is important or even necessary, is because in order to have compassion for your suffering, you must first see your suffering. And mindfulness is what allows us to do just that, right? Mindfulness in the accepting and the sort of kind presence that we develop with mindfulness, it allows us to turn towards those things that maybe make us afraid, turn towards those things that make us feel, emotionally difficult, just give us difficult feelings, right? Feelings of shame, feelings of guilt, feelings of fear, right? These are the things that hold us back, right? These are the things that hold us back from changing things in our lives that can ultimately facilitate more happiness in our lives, right? Like, if you ever feel stuck in your life, and sometimes we all feel stuck in our lives, right? That stuckness in almost every circumstance can be traced back to an absence of self-compassion and mindfulness. And so truly, whatever it is that you wish to change in your life, even if your life is perfect, right, you'll still benefit. Although I know your life is not perfect. Nobody's life is perfect, right? So whatever it is in your life that you feel like you might want to change, self-compassion and mindfulness are going to be tools that will help you to change those things. All right, so here's what the course is going to look like. Okay, I feel like I don't need to sell you on the course. Like, I could go through all the different bullet points. Like, I have, I just did these. There's going to be a link to the landing page I just created in the description of this video and in the email that goes out and all that, in the podcast and everything else, right? So self-compassionate people, they achieve more goals in their lives. Or if they give up a goal, they don't blame themselves for giving up a goal. They can very easily find the next goal and seamlessly and without interruption live their lives in spite of whatever the goal missed or achieved goals happen, right? Self-compassion, and this is all through exhaustive research done by the person who wrote this book, that woman right there, right? She's done a lot of the actual research here, and I'm citing her studies, okay? Procrastination is something that self-compassionate people do not do as much, okay? Authenticity and autonomy are also associated with self-compassion. And how important is authenticity? Well, you've heard me talk about it, right? Authenticity is ultimately your intuition, right? And the thing about the intuition is that when we can really get in touch with that intuition, the decisions that we have to make in our lives, they make themselves. They really do, right? Like, should I stay? Should I go? Should I do? Should I not? Should I spend? Should I save? Should I eat? Should I diet? All those questions. When we're in touch with our authenticity, when we're able to get into our intuition, which is our authenticity, then those questions are no longer questions. It's evident what we should do. So I'm telling you, it's pretty amazing when you get to that level. I can tell you that for sure. Okay. What else? Okay, stress. Okay, that's an obvious one. I mean, that's what I talk about all the time, right? Your stress, your anxiety, your depression, all of those things. Perfectionism, resilience is increased. All of the negative things in our, stress, anxiety, depression, all of that is decreased. Perfectionism is decreased. And resilience and patience and tolerance for yourself and for everyone else around you increase through the roof. Okay, simple practices, folks. This is all. This is not magic. It's simple practices that I'm going to teach you in this course. I'll get to that in a second. Sense of purpose and passion. Self-compassion is the thing that allows us to see what our purpose is. Right, and that's one of the exercises that I'm going to do in this course. It's a little just a very simple kind of list-making / journaling exercise that you're going to do to find what it is. What is your passion? Do you know? Do you? Right now, can you tell me right now in an elevator pitch, can you tell me what your passion is? Most people would answer no to that question. And that's a big part of the reason why we suffer. Because if I know what my passion is and I know what my purpose is, well, I wake up in the morning and that's all there is to worry about. Everything else really doesn't seem so important. And that allows me to accept the things that are happening. It allows me to let go of expectations and allows me to be patient and tolerant with myself and with all the people who seem to need more and more of my patience every single day out there, right? Body satisfaction. Okay, and this is a serious thing here, okay, especially for any of you who are parents out there, right? Like I'm reading the chapter in this book about this part of it, and like I have a daughter who's about to turn 13, and she is right now going through so much, struggle. I mean, it hasn't started yet. She probably doesn't know yet. It's starting to kind of inklings of it are starting to arise, I'm sure. But as she gets older, the studies show that as women get older, from 12 years old, they feel like a little bit of body, like I'm not thin enough, I'm not curvy enough, I'm not pretty enough. They feel a little bit of that when they're 13. They feel more when they're 14, more when they're 15, more when they're 16, more than when they're 17, on and on, right? It gets worse. That's not true for men. Fortunate for us, but for women, that's very true. And so the point that I'm making here is even if you're a man, and even if you don't have children yet, if you ever plan on having children, just imagine what knowing some of these truths and practices, how that can help you to help your daughter. Okay? And that's true for all your moms out there too, right? These are what we're going to provide you is the framework with which you can have discussions with your children. And of course it applies to boys too. It's not just girls. I mean, boys have weight issues. Boys have other issues rather than just being pretty and slim and stuff. Am I strong enough? Am I manly enough? Am I tough enough? All those questions are things that are going to be gripping the adolescent mind and really causing a lot of stress. And of course, just like you, when children and adolescents experience stress, They don't learn, they don't grow, they don't heal, they don't live in happiness. And the adolescent brain is enough trouble. We don't want to add on to it with all these emotions of shame and guilt and unworthiness. And so this is I'm going to give you the framework with which you can have conversations with your children. You can have conversations with your nieces and nephews. You can have conversations with somebody you work with at your office, or maybe you're a teacher. These are all things that can benefit you, okay? Really benefit you, and benefit you to benefit others. And then ultimately what we do is we model this, right? And again, this is, when people around you see that you are living in this way with less stress, less anxiety, less depression, less perfectionism, you have more optimism, you have more resilience, you have more, happiness, more wellness, more good feeling. People are going to see that. And you know what they're going to do? Attract to you. They're going to want to know, what can I do to be more like you? And it is not a narcissistic thing to say that feels really good. Okay, there is something really special about a feeling, even when, and a lot of times people won't come up to you and say, hey, what are you doing? But you'll see subtle signs in which you see people kind of, emulating you and imitating you a little bit. And it's the highest form of flattery for a reason. It really is. And it feels really good. But again, it's not in a narcissistic way. It's in a compassionate way, right? You feel like, wow, look, that person is living a better life because of the work that I did on my own. Ooh, that's powerful. That is powerful. One last piece, and we're going to go a little bit long in this segment because the next segment is kind of short. I got a really special thing I want to share with you in the next segment. I'm so excited about it, but it's going to be a little shorter than usual. So this one might go a little longer, so we kind of end up hopefully in around the same spot. Because this last part that I want to tell you about is super, super, super important. 3 supers in that one. That's serious. And what I'm talking about is the health of your telomeres. Now, some of you, my regular viewers and listeners, may remember me talking about telomeres before. Okay, telomeres are these little sort of, it's just like if you look at the shoelace. I actually have a shoelace right here. An extra pair of shoelaces came with my sneakers. Pretty awesome. But this little plastic cap at the end of my shoelace here, right? That little cap, right? It's actually called an aglet. There's a name for it. So that aglet is very much like what a telomere does, okay? A telomere is like a little cap on the end of your chromosomes, okay? Now, your chromosomes, that's everything, right? That's what makes you who you are. That's what tells your cells how to divide, how to replicate, how to, what to do, right? It's what your chromosomes are what, makes your body happen, okay? And the thing is that these telomeres, every time your chromosome, every time that cell that the chromosome lives in, divides, the telomere shortens just a little tiny bit. I mean, I'm doing this with my fingers. I mean, you're talking about microscopic levels, right? And when that telomere dissolves completely, which normally is supposed to happen when we're very old, like 90 years old, 100 years old, right? That's the natural progression, right, that it's supposed to be. But what happens with so many people is it happens so much sooner. But when that thing happens, when that little cap dissolves and pops off, just like what happens to your shoelace, it's kind of amazing. Your shoelace will unravel so that you can't get it through that hole anymore, and therefore the shoelace feels kind of useless, right? Well, your chromosomes unravel in a very similar fashion. And once those things unravel, there's no getting them back, and that indicates the death of that cell. And when that happens, more globally in your body, that's when you're looking at the illness of an organ or the, that kind of thing, right? And ultimately, that marks the end of our lives, right? And so what they have found with exhaustive research, right? A guy by the name of Robert Sapolsky, I talk about a lot here. He's done a ton of research on stress and telomeres. And there's a book out called The Telomere Effect, which was published about 3 years ago by Barbara Epple and Liz Blackburn. Pretty impressed I remember that. And they wrote this book. They actually, Liz, I think it was Elizabeth Blackburn, won the Nobel Prize for finding telomerase, which is an enzyme which fortifies the telomeres, which actually prevents them from shortening, and actually can even be shown to increase, lengthen them. And the longer the telomeres, the longer, the more longevity that cell has. The more longevity that your cells have, the more longevity you have. Okay? The shorter the telomeres, the more susceptible you are to illness and to other conditions that are going to hasten your trip to the end here, you know? And so one of the most powerful ways in which the telomeres are affected is through stress and just general unwellness. And one of the most beautiful and most impactful benefits of mindfulness and self-compassion are health and well-being, and reduction in stress, and reduction in anxiety, and reduction in all those things that might shorten your telomeres. All right, because in the practice of compassion and meditation, and they talk about this in the book. It's actually over there on a bookshelf over there. You can't see, so I'm not getting this opposite this time. Well, it's the first time. But they tell you this in the book, that practicing compassion and meditation is actually the thing, right? Like, that's what's going to help you. In addition to diet, in addition to exercise, in addition to, drinking enough water, all of which are going to come much more naturally to you. If you have a hard time, oh man, I wish I could eat healthier, or oh man, I wish I could, I should drink more water, or oh man, I shouldn't drink as much alcohol and all that kind of caffeine and all that kind of stuff, right? Self-compassion will address all of that, and will enable you to make those decisions to do less of those things that harm you and more of those things that are good for you. Like Gloria Steinem says in this, in her, I want to see if yes. Okay. So Gloria Steinem has a blurb in the Self-Compassion book. A portable friend to all readers, especially but not only women, who need to learn that the golden rule works only if it's reversible. We must learn to treat ourselves as well as we wish to treat others. That is a beautiful notion, Gloria. Thank you. Isn't that true? I mean, we always hear about that golden rule, right? Do unto others as you'd have them to do unto you, right? It works the other way. That's all backwards. Treat yourself the way that you want people to treat you, and the golden rule will take care of itself. All right, so here's the details, okay? Where it is, right here on Zoom. Well, you're not watching this on Zoom, so I don't know why I'm saying right here, but I'm going to be sitting right here in this chair, or actually standing in part of it, because I'm going to be hopefully using some whiteboards on this. I'm really excited about that. It's going to be a new experience for me. I'm nervous and excited. But here's the thing, right? These are going to be very much lectures, right? This is going to be total, like, real information. It's not just going to be sitting around and talking, and, there's going to be plenty of time for questions and answers, but it's going to be teaching. I'm going to be sending you, information, giving you, things to fill out, little exercises, little meditation practices, little journaling practices, little list making practices, little thought experiments and exercises. And I'm so excited for you, but it's all online. Okay. In fact, I don't have room for you here, so you couldn't join live even if you wanted to, right? But it's all going to be live on Zoom, live on Zoom, though. It's not recorded. It's definitely live. It's going to happen on Saturdays, okay? Because again, as I told you, I'm trying to accommodate people from the West Coast of the U.S. all the way to the Ankara, Turkey, right? There's a lot of time zones I'm trying to accommodate. And I find that if I can get somewhere kind of in the middle afternoon here, that gives me the best chance to accommodate everybody. So right now we're slated for 2 p.m. on Saturdays. Okay, it's going to start on the 16th, and it's going to go for 8 consecutive Saturdays, except for Thanksgiving weekend. We'll just take that weekend off. So really it's going to be like 8 sessions in 9 weeks. No big deal, okay? Saturday at 2 on Zoom. What else do I need to tell you? The cost. I'm purposely going against all the advice on this one. Okay, all the advice I've ever gotten, right, is that if I don't make something expensive, it doesn't seem like it's worth it for people. And I've tried and I've tried and I've tried and I've tried to live by that notion. And the problem is that it excludes too many people, right? Because whether the marketing people want to admit it or they're just being disingenuous, the reality is that not everybody has expendable income that they can invest in themselves. Of course, everybody should invest in themselves, and in a perfect world, we wouldn't even have the money, it wouldn't even be a money problem, right? But money is real. We know that. And it is not in unlimited supply for a lot of people. And so a lot of people can't just drop, $300-$400, even though that's cheap compared. Like there are coaches out there. I heard recently one coach who charges $2,500 per hour. I don't ever want to make that kind of money. Really, I don't. But so that's where we say like, oh, it's only $400. Imagine the person spending, $2,500 times 8 for that thing, and I'm giving it to you for $400. Come on. And that's true. But that doesn't mean that everybody has $400. So I'm trying it differently, and this is something I've come across over and over and over. So I'm trying it differently this way. Okay, for this course, it is 8 weeks for $88. Okay? So it's $11 a course, a class, right? I hope that is something that you all understand, that I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to make it accessible for everyone, okay? Because everyone could benefit from this. Now, in terms of the class size, okay, generally speaking, my experience is that 10 to 15 people, anything more than that starts to get really hard for the question and answer period, right? Because if everybody has a question, then each person takes, say, 3 minutes to get the question, and that's really conservative, but even just 3 minutes, if you have 10 people, that's a half hour. That's with no time in between each other, and that's if everybody only takes 3 minutes. It's not reasonable, right? And I'm already going to give like about an hour of a lecture, 45 minutes of a lecture. So how long do we want this meeting to be, right? So if we get up to 20 and 30 people, these meetings can go on for 3 hours. I've been there, 4 hours even. I've been in a meeting for 4 hours and had more like 60 people on the call, but still, it's a lot of time. We don't all have that kind of time. So I'm going to try to limit it to about 10 to 12 people. But here's the good news. I will start another class, right? Like I'll do this 5-7 days a week if we have to. Okay. So there's no fear of missing out. There's no FOMO. There's no BS. Okay. I'm not here to be a snake oil salesman all of a sudden to you, right? I'm telling you straight, as I always do, okay, that the initial course on Saturday at 2, I'm going to shut it down after like 12 people join, which might happen today. I don't know, right? Like maybe you and 11 other people snatch them up in 10 minutes. I don't know. It could also be that at the end of the week, I only have one person. I don't know, right? But the point is that if we run over, I will certainly add more classes. So don't worry about it. All right. So there's going to be a link to the landing page that I created. But if you have any other questions, whatever they might be, send me an email. Okay. art@artburnscoaching.com. All right. You know what? We're already at almost 25 minutes. So you know what? I'm not even going to do a second segment today. Actually, yes, I am. I'll see you in the next segment. Take care. And I hope I see you in my self-compassion course because it's going to be good for you. All right. I'll see you in a bit. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to segment number 2 of today. Today is October 8th, I believe, Friday. And so today I want to tell you a little bit of a a little bit of a personal story. So if you watch the last segment, you know that I'm about to launch into this beautiful 8-week program of self-compassion, which of course I say self-compassion, but it's really not an accurate term. It's really compassion, but it's compassion for 360 degrees. That's what we're talking about, right? And not only is it compassion, but it's also kindness, right? And so I want to tell you this beautiful story about something that happened to me just yesterday. And it really is one of the most heartwarming experiences I've ever had in my life. Okay. And I know this is going to seem weird when you hear what it is, right? Because I have 2 kids and I've been through 52 years of life. And so it seems bizarre that this would be the most heartwarming thing, but it really, I can't remember feeling more steeped in kindness and beauty, quite frankly. And I might start crying as I tell you this story. Trigger warning, fair warning for you, okay? So as you all know, or maybe you remember, maybe you don't, I'm in the middle of a 6-month course with Dr. Dan Siegel. We're actually in the 4th month now, just in the beginning of the 4th month. So halfway over, but we accept it. We live in the moment, right? And so the course is called a comprehensive course on interpersonal neurobiology. Okay, and it's really fascinating stuff. If you know anything about me, you know I'm a nerd for this stuff, and I am just in my heaven. Okay, and so part of this course, so it's like 60 hours of video lectures and stuff. Like it's an intense course. It really is. And there's quizzes at every section. If I want to get, continuing credits and stuff, I'm doing the quizzes even though I don't have any reason to, but it's really fascinating. And anyway, yeah, like just video after video after video. Each one was like an hour and a half long. And they're just so, the information, the knowledge that Dr. Siegel has that just rolls off his tongue about brain science and body science, it's so mind-blowing, right? But part of the course also includes a monthly question and answer session with Dr. Siegel, right? Where you actually join him on a video call, right? And you're actually talking to him one-on-one. Now, unfortunately, last month I missed because of my own, I just had I had a trauma response that Thursday morning. I just wasn't able to get on the call. It was just like I was crying, I just couldn't do it. And then the month before, I missed because they moved the date and I didn't get the notification. It was my fault, not theirs. And so I've only been to one of these out of, this was, one out of the last 3, right? And so I wasn't going to miss yesterday. I was really excited. So I actually queued up like 4 different questions, right? Just to as much time as I can get in front of Dan Siegel, right? And so the question that he brought me on for, the rest he just kind of answered with written answers, because I didn't want to take up too much of everybody's time. Again, you got 40, 50 people. Actually, I think we had like 80 people on that call, so you like to give people room, But anyway, the question that I asked Dr. Siegel is that, in my experience as a coach, right, I work with people who come from all kinds of areas of life, right? And for myself and for a lot of the clients who I guess I feel drawn to because they're like me, right? They're people who believe that, life is tough and you got to be tough to meet that. All right. Or else you're going to be walked all over. That's how I lived my life for over 40 years that way. Right. And I started to parent that way. I was that way as a husband. I was that way as a friend. I was that way as a business owner. And I realized it's all wrong. It's just not the way it goes, right? And in fact, it's being kind and being forgiving and being compassionate, which actually makes you more effective at life. That's the thing. Like Sharon Salzberg says, we don't meditate to get better at meditating. We meditate to get better at life, right? And so the same thing is true. We don't practice kindness to be better at being kind. We practice kindness because it makes us better at life. And so my question was to Dan, well, first the intro to the question was that in my experience, many of the people who I work with in the very beginning, they're very reluctant to even discuss the kindness aspect of mindfulness, right? Because again, they feel that being kind is associated with being weak or soft or something like that, right? But what happens is along the course of practicing just attention training which means just meditation, just none of the compassion, none of the, spirituality, not just attention training meditation, the most basic form of meditation you can imagine. That people who go through that, after a few weeks, they automatically cultivate this sense of kindness. They become more kind, even if they're trying not to be. And so I asked Dan, Dr. Siegel, he asked me to call him Dan, so I did. I said, Dan, what is the neurological basis for that? Why is it that attention training results in kindness? And he kind of looked at me almost like he's like, are you really asking me this question? Because this is what every lesson that you've watched is kind of about. I kind of knew that. I mean, I definitely knew that, but I just wanted to hear it. I just wanted to get confirmation. Maybe I thought he was going to give me some great, brain anatomy kind of stuff. But essentially he shrugged and he said, it's integration. That when we do meditation or any mindfulness practices, we increase integration in our brain. And as Dr. Siegel has on the wall of his Mind Sight Institute, kindness and compassion, integration illustrated is kindness and compassion. Meaning that if we integrate our brain, automatically kindness arises. Isn't that beautiful? And that certainly was not the thing that I'm talking about, right? Because then, and I think he recognized somehow that, look, you have to understand, most of the other people in this course are therapists and doctors and PhDs, and they're asking these very high level questions. And here I am, like, what makes people kind, Dan? I didn't even graduate college, and so I think he sensed that, and he sensed that with somebody who was a few callers before me too, where that other person was having a hard time, like he couldn't feel his own emotions, right? And so what Dan did, and Dan's a therapist, right? The guy had a guitar hanging on the wall behind him. He said, pick that guitar up and just strum a couple of tunes for us. And in that way, he got the guy to feel into his body. It was so beautiful. And so for me, he said, you know what? There's this beautiful poem by, the writer is called Naomi Shihab Nye. And he said, I want you to go read that poem. And in fact, he said, can anybody look up the poem real quick and post it in the chat of this call, the 80 people? And like that, somebody posted it. And he says, here's what we're going to do, Art. I want to read this poem with you. So he says, I'll read one line, then you read the next line, I'll read the one, boom, boom, boom. And in the end, we read the last couple of lines together. It was one of the, and now this is the kind of thing that normally, if somebody told me that was what I was going to do in that call, I wouldn't have shown up for the call. Seriously, I don't do poetry. It's not, the only poetry I like is when it's set to music, and the poet is Bob Dylan or Jerry Garcia and Robert Hunter, right? I'm not a poet guy. I'm a novel guy. Like I read, you can see how many books I read, but none of them are poetry, right? But what was I going to say? No. So I surrendered myself to it, and it was the most beautiful experience. So I want to read the poem to you right now. Okay, it'll only take a couple of seconds. Okay, the poem is called Kindness. And again, it's written by a woman named Naomi Shihab Nye. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop, the passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere like a shadow or a friend. Not the first time I've cried in this podcast, probably not the last, but I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions about the self-compassion practice, please reach out. I wish you well, and I'll be back in tomorrow. Take care.